Hi, welcome back to Lakeside Quilt Making Arts. I am Dawn at the lake, and this channel is a quilt with me, a learn with me. I'm not quite a novice, but I am far from being well experienced either. So I'm going to be making blunders. If you're looking for only expert advice, you need to go elsewhere. If you want to come on this journey with me, I welcome your contributions. I welcome your interactions. And there may be some tips here and there that I share that might be helpful. I'm trying to curate from a lot of different places, so maybe there is something I share that can help you. But otherwise, we're here for a journey. And today's journey is a Moda Blockheads. And specifically, I'm finally getting started. It took me a while to curate my fabrics because I did those by going to the unclaimed baggage store in Scottsboro, Alabama, and got shirts. They weren't exactly thrift store pricing, but they were cool and they were cheaper than me traveling into town to go to a quilt store. So what I've done is I've selected fabrics all in a kind of a blue-green sea glass colorway. So I've got those. I'm really pleased with those. And last night I started to cut my fabric out for Moda Blockheads Group 2 Block 1. And this is Sherri McConnell's block, and it's called Dream Big. And Sherri McConnell is with a Quilting Life. But if you don't follow her, you're missing out. She and her son and daughter do a great little podcast. I enjoy listening to that. So I did a little coloring. They also provide a sheet that's just for coloring. So if you mess it up, you don't like what you've done, you can just start fresh there. See if you can see it from there. Okay, so what I did is I knew I wanted to take this centerpiece and make it have some interest. So one of my shirts has a pretty little floral in it. So I fussy cut out that square to include a flower in it. And it's not my darkest color. And I knew I wanted my darkest color to kind of frame what was going on. And more so, I wanted it to recede. So I made it my darkest fabric. And then what everyone else I've seen do, they've taken these three units, these three pieces, and created a unit of the block out of the same fabric, so it looks like it's a star, right? And so I wanted to do that as well. So I made this out of my medium blue. No, this is my medium blue, this is my darkest blue, and this is my lighter blue. And then I have a green stripe. So I thought it'd be nice if that's directional, if it points into the star. So that's where I'm putting that. And then I have a fabric, a shirt that has just little chevrons all over it. And it's in the same color as this blue and green. But it's mostly a white, but it has just these little bitty specks. So I put that here and here, but I'm not using it as all of the background. I do want relief from there. So my C and E units are all just plain white. The reason I did that is because I kind of feel like it's the star radiating out. Putting a fabric here that has color in it from the star, it kind of provides a glow to that star. The star is radiating out. Okay, so then these are hourglass unit is a green that's also in a stripe, but it's not a contrast stripe, it's tone on tone. And I couldn't think of anything better to do with those units than what everyone else is doing. So that's the reason I just chose to pull this green here. I felt like if I used another blue there, it'd really distract from the star. So I felt like it was just best to stick with the green. I could have gone with a pink or something else complementary, but I just wanted this one to just really underscore the tone that I'm trying to set for the entire quilt, and that is blue-green, the colors that we most commonly associate with sea glass, and that is the blue and green. Although you can also get these colors in a sea glass. You can get a real cream, slightly yellow. You can get silver, and what's another color I pulled? Yeah, this. You can get this in a sea glass. See how much darker that is? These are just some leftovers I had from some baby quilts I made with the art gallery fabrics, which I just love and adore. So first step of the pattern is already a tricky area. And that's because I'm using a striped fabric and because there's a lot of precision that's going to be needed for some of these. Like this set of white blocks is 1/8 smaller than this set of white blocks. I had to make sure I'm pulling from the right ones. So I'm not real comfortable working with directional fabrics that go in a variety of different places. So I've only drawn a line on the back. Can't really see that on the back of 2 of these, and I want to play with that for a second before and place it in different positions to make sure I like how I've got it drawn. I've done it. Can you see it? Yeah. So I've got my lines, stripes of the fabric going in the same direction and my lines going in the same direction. So these will be identical. And so that will give me 2 that should look exactly the same. And then I can play with their orientation and see if I like how that works out. So they're 3-inch squares and they're matched up to a 3-inch square weight. I'll do those real quick and then we'll play for a second. Okay, there's already another stressor to this quilt block. Not only was I worried about making sure I had perfectly 1/4 inch seam allowances because I'm working with exact measurements on my fabric pieces, meaning 3 1/8. Everything's down to 1/8. But they tell me to do not a perfect 1/4 inch seam. They tell me to do a scant quarter. And I'm not real sure what that means. So what I'm interpreting it to mean is to not be a full 1/4. So I'm erring on the side of being more like a fat 1/8. And my stitch line on one side turned out a little bit wide at the end. You know how your fabric likes to pull in one direction at the very end or at the very beginning? And I had a little bit of that. So I'm going to pull out a little section of it so I can re-sew that to match the length, to match what that seam allowance is for the full length of the seam. Actually, I'm pulling out more than I thought I should initially. I'm pulling out what I think I should, but I didn't think I needed this much initially. And I have learned by watching Kimberly Dolly that there are better seam rippers than what I have, that there are some really finely pointed seam rippers. And I think I need one of those because I like a tiny stitch and my seam ripper is kind of flat. I mean, kind of big. I mean, it's probably typical. And I thought I had what she had actually. It's a clover. She said hers is a white clover. Don't know if that makes any difference. Okay, I'm ready to restitch that seam to make sure I don't veer off of my guideline. Okay, so I'm going to cut between the stitch lines. Most likely, you're following me, you're a quilter, and you know that. But if not, you're a brand newbie. So what I did is I drew a line from one edge to the other, from one point to the other, and then I sewed tried to sew a scant 1/4 inch on either side of it. And then I'll slice that open right on that drawn line. And then that's going to give us, hold one momento, that'll give us this half square triangles, 2 of them, one on either side. They'll be identical. Okay, a little practice makes improvement, progress. Doesn't make perfection, but this is much more consistent all the way from one end to the other. I had to go slow. I know how to make a consistent, most of the time, a consistent 1/4 inch seam with this foot on this machine. But doing this scant 1/4 inch thing it kind of threw me off. We'll see if this one does okay. If not, I may have to take it apart and redo it. Okay, this is what we've got. I cut apart the 2 units that we sewed together, and it gives us 4 of these half square triangles. And we'll put a 2.5 inch block here and a 2.5 inch block there. And that will create an hourglass configuration out of these two, which this, by the way, I found out is not 100% cotton. The shirt says it is, but it clearly is not. It doesn't respond to the iron the way cotton does. It's almost wanting to melt. So this is the last of this fabric that I'll be using. Unfortunately, now I've got a whole shirt I need to toss. So each of these blocks gets cut down to be 2.5 inches. You'll see how this ruler has a diagonal line. You put that on that seam and that tells you what gets cut off, right? So this 2.5, this will get cut down to 2.5, all of them will, and then they'll be married up to a 2.5 piece of fabric here, the same thing there, and then you have a nice little 4 patch. And with there being half square triangles on either point, you know, the northeast and southwest points, then you'll get an hourglass. I'm going to go ahead, like I said, I'm just dipping my toes into all this, so I don't want to do all 8. I'm going to do 4 at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and get these squared up and get both sets of 4 patches done. Take a look at those, see if I've learned anything else new, and then I'll do the next set. Okay, I got my first 4 patches done. I need to press them open, but you can see the hourglass taking shape. What I've learned from this exercise is that my needle I need to have a finer needle, or maybe just a newer one, because it's wanting to push this fabric underneath it instead of going through it. And so that's it's trying to create some inconsistent stitching at the ends where it's pushing the fabric. Okay, so let me get these pressed open, and I feel comfortable moving on and doing the others since I've learned from these what I need to watch out for. Evidently what we're doing is we're working our way from the outside of the pattern into the middle, and this completes all 4 corners of our block. So that's exciting. It's progress. It's progress, progress, progress. Working with shirt fabric is just going to present issues. So, because there's inconsistencies. There's more inconsistencies with shirt cottons than quilting cottons. At least that's my take on things. So what I've learned clearly is what I said, I need to change out my needle and I need to starch my fabrics, which I should have done before I cut. But since I've already cut these, I'm not going to. But I'm going to put my Mary Ellen's Best Press on my fabrics before I cut them going forward. I didn't think about that. Lessons learned. Lessons learned. And just like that, it's done. Not quite. It took me a little while. I was trying to follow the instructions exactly how they were laid out, and some of it was new for me. So I went slowly, and I did things in pairs of 2 where they wanted you to do them in pairs of 4 or 8 to make sure I was doing things right. And I was really pleased with how well I was able to get these points to line up, and then I got a little cocky. So when I was doing my flying geese, which you have, this unit is a flying geese and this unit is a flying geese, they're a little off. They're not exactly the measurement they should be. And I think it's because the pattern is written for you to do a scant quarter. And I'm used to doing a quarter. I'm not used to that, so it kind of threw me off a little bit. And that's the only thing I can figure out is what made those units not be exactly the size they should have been once this flying geese looked perfect and this flying geese looked perfect. But when I married them together, it wasn't all exactly how it should be. The sides of them didn't match up, and then it didn't measure out to 4.5 inches. So I don't know where I went wrong, but I just worked with it. But it's not bad. It's really not bad. I'll give you some close-up pictures too. I do like how my dark fabric turned out. One of my objectives was to have all of my green stripes here go in the same direction. And I wanted that here as well. I wanted these to all go that way. But following their directions, I couldn't figure out how to do that. So they don't do it. But at least on opposite sides, they do the same things. These point into the star, and these do as well. You can see that's where my little bit of puckering is. But these are going vertical. So they're all going vertical, but I didn't want them to all go vertical. I wanted them to point into the star. So I think I would need to use a different technique. I think the reason it worked out this way is because of I'm getting my tongue tied. I think the reason it worked out this way is because of the technique that was used. It might just be that I need to do one at a time and do a sew and flip method so I can make sure that I'm getting my orientation of my lines in the direction that I want, because that kind of messed with me. I do like my color flow though. I achieved what I was looking for because this has some of the blue and green in it, and that carries out on the diagonal. It's not real obvious on the screen there. I don't know how well it's going to look on the video, but so you have your background here, and then this is a secondary background. I'll show you up close. Oh, before I do, let me tell you, I believe it's this stripe is not 100% cotton. I'm going to have to double check that shirt. I was pretty sure that I had gotten all 100% cotton shirts, and this one melted a little bit, messed up my iron. So I thought, oh, that's fine. I'll clean my iron later. I have one of those little small irons. I got it out. It wouldn't work. It was a thing. You know, it was like it took time to figure all that out. And it wasn't that just the outlet that I was using or whatever. So that little iron is toast. I'll show you on the Tuesday video. I'll talk more about all that on the Tuesday video. So I had to clean my iron, and I'll talk about that on the Tuesday video. It was a thing. So it almost put me in a mood, but I persevered. I didn't want to end my day on that. So I went ahead and finished up. And the same thing, just because there's a little bit of puckering here, that will quilt out. I'm not going to be bothered by that. I'm not going to let myself be bothered by that. Overall, I'm pleased with it, and I feel like it's got to be one of the harder ones. I've seen some of the others, and they don't look to be as hard. This took a while because there's each unit took a little bit of effort. And then I wanted to make sure I was doing a good job because this is for one of my angels. I feel like the only thing that I might be disappointed in is even though I put color in some of the spaces where there's supposed to be just white background, it still reads blue and white. And I wanted it to be more blue-green. And I've got green in two places, here and here, but it still reads as blue, like a blue and white block. This is fine because this whole quilt is going to be made out of a sampler quilt, basically. So I'll just work on making sure I've got more green in the next block, but I will be replacing that fabric because every time I ironed this one, I had to lay an ironing cloth over it, and that took longer and everything too. So for a little bit there, I was trying to not be a happy camper, but I finished and I'm happy with it. And with that, we'll close out this video. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about the quilt making arts. Thank you for caring about the journey that I'm on and being part of this community and subscribing to the channel. Really appreciate everybody who's doing that. I really appreciate it. It makes me feel like, hey, somebody cares about what I'm doing. Thank you. You have a good day. I'm so glad that we spent some time together. See you soon. Bye-bye.